So yeah, Sony Michel. Going back to what I was saying, Sony Michel is definitely a guy that I'm probably targeting in about the fifth or sixth round. You saw what Dion Lewis was able to do last year in that offense, and quite frankly, Sony Michel is a lot more talented, believe it or not. We also know that Rex Burkhead, his knees, he's going to have a condition. I think he's got a slight tear. So we don't know how effective he's going to be. We also don't know if that's going to end up getting progressively worse. So Sony Michel is a guy that can really, now he has even RB1 upside, especially in PPR. Remember, we're talking about the Pats here. That's a potent offense that likes to throw to running backs. So Sony Michel is definitely a guy I will be targeting. Some tight ends that I really like too. Quarterback and tight end is usually a position that I go late. I don't think there's anybody really worth reaching for because each tight end that you would consider in the early to mid rounds, whether it's Gronkowski, who usually goes around round 2 or 3, he's always going to miss a couple games. Now we have Travis Kelce with what I think is a better quarterback. He's one of my sleepers as well, Patrick Mahomes. Alex Smith threw a lot to the tight end, but we don't have Alex Smith. We don't have Matt Nagy calling the plays anymore. And quite frankly, I think we're going to see a regression on Kelce because they're going to need to rely less on Kelce because you got a quarterback with a bigger arm. I think they're going to be taking more shots down the field. So I expect definitely Tyreek Hill to have a monster year. I think his floor is last year, and even last year he was a wide receiver 1. He's going about the third round, which I think is a great value for him. Sammy Watkins might be able to do some things too if he stays healthy. So Travis Kelce, I don't think he's worth the second, third round ADP that he's going. Greg Olsen, he's getting up there in age. He's very effective. Cam loves him, but he is over 30, coming off a season where he was injured for most of the year. So there's question marks around him. Zach Ertz is another one who gets injured quite often. Same with Kyle Rudolph. And then you got the rookie tight end who they really like in Philly, and they're going to be running some 2 wide receiver sets. He'll probably steal some touchdowns from Ertz. So each one of these tight ends that are going kind of high have question marks. Now, 3 tight ends I absolutely love in this order is, first is, speaking of Matt Nagy, is Trey Burton. Trey Burton's definitely got an opportunity to sneak into the top 5 tight ends. They're going to use him all over the field. Mitch Trubisky's still a young quarterback, so I expect him to use his tight end. Absolutely love Trey Burton. I would reach for him as early as round 6. If you could get him around 7, boy, you got yourself a steal. And if you strike out with Trey Burton, there's 2 other tight ends I like. I'm not sure who I like more, but maybe David Noko might be going before Kittle. So if you miss out on Burton, I would definitely try to get one of those 2. I think Kittle's got a really big opportunity to slip because he hasn't played in the preseason, so people kind of forgetting about him. So if you want to wait and get some other guys, if like Robbie Anderson, Jamison Crowder, DJ Moore, these guys start slipping in the 7th, 8th, 9th round, and you want to continue to wait on the tight end. Now, once Burton's gone, once Noko's gone, I think you definitely have to, get Kittle immediately because there's not going to be much left after that. So those 3 tight ends going anywhere from Burton in the 6th to Noko about the 8th or 9th round would be the earliest I would go on him. And then, Kittle maybe 10, 11 were guys that I would be targeting. And quarterback, bro, you can sit all day with the quarterbacks. Mahomes is the one. I'm going to give you 3 quarterbacks to target. Mahomes would be the best out of the 3 in my opinion because I don't think Kansas City's defense, I don't think Kansas City's defense is going to be very good this year. They weren't good last year. They lost some players. And I would look at Mahomes as early as the 8th round. And then if you strike out on him, like I said, you want to get as many running backs. There's going to be some really, really quality running backs later in the draft. A couple other sleepers like Corey Clement, people are overlooking. Ajayi's already hurt. Another guy, Austin Eckler, who I absolutely love. If Melvin Gordon gets hurt, he's got RB1 potential, and he still has some flex appeal even with Melvin Gordon in the lineup. So those guys. And then going back to the quarterback, so if you strike out on Mahomes at around round 8, I love Derek Carr. Nobody's talking about Derek Carr. Guys, John Gruden, I know he's been out of the game for a long time, but he's been keeping up. He's been an announcer. He has that QB camp. He knows offense, and he took a guy like Rich Gannon, who was a journeyman backup quarterback, made him an MVP. Derek Carr, I think, was like top 5 in the MVP voting a year ago. Last year, he was still coming off that injury and didn't quite live up to their expectations, but the guy's super talented. Gruden's never had a quarterback that talented, and he's got weapons. He's got Amari Cooper, who's another guy I expect to, you could get him in the 4th round. Boy, you got yourself some wide receiver 1 potential. And then you got Jordy Nelson. Don't sleep on him. I think he's going to be a big red zone target. Jared Cook's not bad. They got some backs they can mix in. I think Derek Carr is going to have a monster year. So you could sit at quarterback. And a guy that's not even being drafted, Mitch Trubisky, I think with Nagy, he's got weapons galore. Allen Robinson. They got Anthony Miller, the rookie, who I think is another deep sleeper, by the way. He's going to hone the slot. Taylor Gabriel, if Kevin White plays. They got weapons, not to even mention the running backs. They're going to score some points. I think Mitch Trubisky's got a high floor, a safe ceiling, high floor, safe floor, and he's got a nice ceiling. So you could sit all day for quarterback. Just make sure you get as many running backs and receivers as possible. If you listen to my top steps of fantasy success, I talk about loading up at the running back position. I don't own more than 1 quarterback or tight end, and there's probably like 5 running backs on my bench, maybe 1 other receiver. Because receivers you could plug in and out. I usually play fantasy football the way I do DraftKings, and every week there's guys that overproduce, and you could, that wide receiver 2, that wide receiver 3, those positions are interchangeable. You just got to make sure you get a solid wide receiver 1, a Devontae Adams, a Mike Evans, MK13, Beckham, guys like that. And then after that, based on matchups, you could plug and play your receivers. But you want running back depth because they are often injured. So you want to be able to back yourself up. And what I do in fantasy football, my goal is always creating a 3-headed monster, which means I like 2 solid RBs, and then my flex, I always try to start a running back, which is why I have like 5-6 running backs on my roster every single time. If you could shoot for a guy like Tariq Cohen, who's probably going to be slipping now that Nagy said he's going to have Howard in as a 3rd down or for all 3 downs. I call bullshit. I still think Cohen's going to be a factor. I think they'll line him up at receiver. So if you could get a guy like that slipping, a Sony Michel as your 3rd running back, your flex, don't worry so much about the wide receiver. You create that 3-headed monster. If you could get a guy like whoever you draft in the 1st round, even if it's in the back end of the 1st round, you get a guy like Cook or Fournette, and then you pair him up with a guy like Christian McCaffrey or Jerick McKinnon in the 3rd, or even a Jordan Howard. So you could really check this out, guys. You can get whoever you get in the 1st round and the 2nd round. You always want to go running back, wide receiver. So let's say you get a Fournette at the back end of the 1st round and a Beckham, right? Then you come in the 3rd round. You get a guy like either McKinnon, Jordan Howard, or who else did I say? Christian McCaffrey. So now you got a WR1, great, Beckham or MK13, Mike Evans, whoever. You got a solid RB1, Fournette or Cook. Then you pair that up with a McKinnon as your RB2, and then a Cohen as your flex or a Sony Michel. Guys, that's the recipe for a championship. I promise you. Then it doesn't even matter what you do the rest of the way. You could plug in receivers, and then, I got a cheat sheet for you guys too. If you DM me, I don't want people from my fantasy football league seeing. You could, man, I'm telling you, we got the recipe for success, guys. You could DM me anytime or message me on Twitter at SportsLibs, at Instagram, or at SportsLibs on Instagram as well. All right, moving quite along here. Players you want to avoid. Now, this is the one thing. You notice all the players that I mentioned to you guys. Now, I did mention Fournette and Cook. They're coming off, Fournette has his history of injuries, and Cook is coming off of ACL, but he doesn't really have an injury history. But at the back end of the 1st round, early 2nd round, it's worth the risk. But one thing I do try to avoid is injured players. So I mentioned Gronk earlier. 2nd, 3rd round, That's too high for me for a guy that misses a couple games a year. Other guys like Alshon Jeffrey is guaranteed to miss some games. AJ Ajayi is already banged up. Doug Baldwin already has a gimpy knee. I don't want those guys on my team, even if they have some upside. But if Doug Baldwin's going at the same range as a Tyreek Hill or Adam Thielen, who might slip with this ankle injury, I'm not worried about ankle injuries. Everybody gets those. He's been very, very healthy throughout his career. But I'd rather go those guys than take a risk on Doug Baldwin. It's just not worth it. You know what I'm saying? So definitely any injury guys. Carlos Hyde has a history of injuries. Who else was I missing here? Let me see. I wrote down some names here. Or maybe not. Let's see here. Devontae Parker. Not that anybody's reaching high for him. Rex Burkhead, I mentioned him earlier as well. He has a little tear. They say he could play through it. But still, I rather, the fantasy is a lot like the NFL. The teams that make it are the teams that are healthiest. Everybody starts off on paper looking great. I got Gronk and I got Doug Baldwin as my second receiver and everything's all good. And then those guys get injured and your team goes, LaShawn McCoy, I'm not touching him whatsoever. He's injury prone. He also has that case. I'm totally staying away from him. And Danny Amendola is a guy, if you could get him in the late rounds, 9, 10 or whatever, he's going to be effective when he plays, by the way, because Tannehill is one of the most inaccurate quarterbacks out there. He's pretty close to Cam Newton. Actually, might be worse when it comes to the deep ball. So he has to throw short. That's why Jarvis Landry got all those receptions. They're going to do a lot of dink and dunk, and that's why I think Drake's going to be an absolute beast. I made a daily sports rap about him back in May. Everybody was dogging, they got Gore. They drafted a running back in the 4th round and whatever. Bro, guys, everybody needs running back depth. There's like 5 to 7 running backs that are true RB1s, bell cows, like Gurley, Zeke, Hunt, you know what I'm saying, Fournette. But everybody's in a timeshare. It doesn't mean anything. Drake is going to ball. Just because you got a 35-year-old running back and you drafted a running back in the 4th round, everybody was dogging him. Then yesterday, Adam Gase comes out with the news that, he's going to get 15 to 20 carries, 6 to 8 targets. Now everybody's back on the bandwagon. Guys, Drake's a talent. I would even go as far as saying, I said this in my rap, I think he could be better than Christian McCaffrey. I think he's more talented. I think he'll get more touchdowns because I think Cam will be taking some of those touchdowns as well as C.J. Anderson. And McKinnon's already injured. I mean, McKinnon, the system is what makes McKinnon exciting. But his talent, he's not an in-between tackles runner. Drake is just as good as receiver. He's got an interesting, coach who's going to find creative ways to get him the ball. And he's a better runner. So don't be surprised if Drake plays better than McCaffrey and McKinnon. And he's going late. I mean, I would reach for Drake as far as the 3rd round, honestly. Back in the 3rd round, if you get him in the 4th round, oh, bless your heart. You got yourself a steal. So, absolutely, positively, love me some Drake. So, now let's talk a little bit about the rookie running back situation. Super high on Sony Michel. I mentioned him. Barkley, this guy takes care of himself. He's already practicing in full. You can draft him as early as like pick 5, pick 6. I got no problem with that. He doesn't have an injury history. And Pat Shurmur is an offensive genius. There's very few coaches. Shurmur, Kyle Shanahan, what's his name? Gruden, both Grudens. Gruden in Washington, Gruden in Oakland, Sean McVay. These guys are creative coaches. Pat Shurmur, Dalvin Cook was an RB1 last year before he got injured. Saquon, that's his floor. So don't think just because he's a rookie, that means absolutely nothing. 4 of the top 10 running backs last year were rookies. So Barkley is amazing. He's already practicing in full. Have no problem picking him over even, Kamara or whatever. Even if you want to pick him over DJ, I have no problem with that either. I think all these guys, Kamara, DJ, Gurley, Zeke, you can put them in a basket, pick one. They're all the same. So that's my take on him. Saquon, Sony Michel. Royce Freeman, I wasn't as high in him for two reasons. And one of them is already showing. Already the coach said he's going to start Devontae Booker, who's quite frankly trash. He hasn't shown anything. And he likes sharing carries. They don't have like a number one running back. Royce Freeman is also not a pass catcher. So he had a couple big runs against, second team, third team guys, but he's a big guy. If they stack the box, you can stop those big guys normally. I'm not big on Royce Freeman, especially people reaching for him in the third, fourth round. If you're playing PPR, I don't want pass catching backs, which is why I'm not even that big a fan on Derrick Henry or Alex Collins. Alex Collins, I like the best out of the three. Derrick Henry, second, because Dion Lewis has an injury history. But, I'd rather take my chance on a guy like Sony Michel, who's going in that same range, or maybe get another receiver, a guy like Marquise Goodwin, which actually reminds me, I think Pierre Garçon is going to be a steal, because Marquise Goodwin, those fast receivers, they tend to get banged up. They tend to pull hamstrings all the time. When you're accelerating at that speed and you're not a big guy, you get hit, Pierre Garçon might be that PPR guy. I think he's gonna flirt with around 8 to 10 touchdowns. He's been relatively healthy his whole career, besides last year. I think Pierre Garçon going after round 10 is gonna be a steal. I like him a lot. He's moving up my draft board along with guys that I mentioned earlier, Tyler Lockett. Jordy Nelson hasn't done anything this preseason. I wouldn't worry about him. Sometimes you want to get guys, they always go with the momentum, who's ever the hot name. So now, before everybody was dogging Drake because, they drafted this guy, they signed this guy, now all of a sudden coach says, so now everybody's back on Drake. But sometimes that's what makes a great analyst, and that's what makes, great fantasy football managers, is the guys who have the vision to see past the obvious. And Jamison Crowder hasn't done nothing this preseason. I love Jamison Crowder. Who else they got in Washington? Jordy Nelson hasn't done anything. Love Jordy Nelson. I'm glad. Kittle hasn't done anything. Good. Because there's guys all the time that do absolutely nothing in preseason and ball. Preseason means nothing, to be honest with you. Even if you're, balling against the first team offense or defense, they're not scheming in preseason. So you could have some big games, and preseason's pointless. Long story short. So if guys like Jordy Nelson, Pierre Garçon, Kittle, past the 10th round, all those guys are great value picks. DJ Moore is another one. Because the other thing is, I like talented guys. Guys I want to go to war with are guys. I always take talent over guys that are kind of like, matchup guys. So that's why I really like DJ Moore. His talent is unbelievable. I think Calvin Ridley is also a solid wide receiver 4. His coach, his offensive coordinator, same guy that coached him in, where's he from? Alabama? Yeah, so Calvin Ridley's a guy, but I still like DJ Moore. Cam has proven, even though he's inaccurate, when he has a stud receiver, Benjamin had a monster year his rookie year. Steve Smith put up some huge numbers. DJ Moore is that type of player. Really like DJ Moore in the later rounds. So I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to talk about. I'm doing a followers league. Contact me at SportsLibs on Instagram about that. We're going to do some prizes. Anybody that beats me is going to get like a $50 gift card. We'll do a grand prize, probably like a $100 gift card. Just make sure you hashtag SportsLibs Fantasy League on that. And then, what else? Am I missing anything here, Tony?
Let me see. Jags receivers.
No, I covered that. I covered the Jags receivers. Definitely like D.D. Westbrook. He's going to be, guys, super sleeper. If you get him after round 10, oh my God, I think D.D. Westbrook, the sky's the limit for him. But I think that pretty much covers it. I have my draft tonight. I have the 6th pick. I'm either going probably Kamara or Barkley. I'm leaning towards Barkley. If I think Kamara's going to get picked, or if DJ slips, one of those 3 guys I'm going to be going after. I'm excited about that. Being in the middle round, I think I have a really nice pick. Also, if you guys have any questions, anything you want to debate on anything I said, feel free to comment down below. and look forward to the draft tonight.